I first noticed the lens one evening, when I drew the curtains half closed and caught a faint glimmer across the street. A round, glassy eye stared back at me, fixed perfectly in line with my bedroom window. For a moment, I told myself it was coincidence, maybe a reflection, maybe a trick of the glass. But the glimmer didn't blink. It held, steady and unyielding, as if it had been waiting for me to notice. The neighbor's window was always dark, curtains drawn, blinds tilted, a square of silence against the row of houses. I rarely saw him during the day, only shadows moving behind thin fabric. But that night, the silhouette of a tripod was clear, the lens protruding from the gap like a tongue tasting the air. First, I tried to ignore it. People are paranoid, I told myself. Maybe he used it for bird watching or to catch a wider view of the street. I convinced myself not to give it power. But every time I stepped into my bedroom, the lens found me. It aligned with the movements of my body, always too precise to be accidental. The sense of intrusion seeped into me slowly, like water through cracks. I began moving differently in my own home, shrinking away from the window, keeping to corners where shadows might obscure me. Sleep grew restless. Each night when I closed my eyes, I pictured the lens recording, storing images somewhere unknown. The thought of being observed in my most private moments wrapped around my chest like wire. I bought thicker curtains, but the fear remained. Even with the fabric pulled tight, I felt it there, watching, waiting, capturing. I started to imagine what the footage might look like, my blurred figure pacing the room, tossing in bed, vulnerable and unaware. The thought became unbearable. Then came the noises. At night, faint mechanical clicks echoed across the silence, the sound of buttons pressed, shutters snapping. Sometimes it was followed by a low hum, like tape spooling or a machine breathing. I pressed my ear to the glass, straining, but the noise always stopped when I tried to catch it fully. The weight of being seen began to change me. I stopped undressing in my room, too afraid of what the lens might capture. I dressed in the bathroom, hid in shadows, avoided mirrors. Even in daylight, I caught myself glancing toward the neighbor's window, heart racing when I saw the dark silhouette still in place. The lens never moved, never left. I tested it once, standing in full view of the window with the curtains open, staring directly into the lens. The air in the room shifted, heavier, charged like static. My reflection in the glass trembled as though the lens pulled at it. I held the stare as long as I could, but eventually my chest tightened, my breath shallow, and I stumbled back, choking on a fear I couldn't explain. That night, I dreamed of the camera. In the dream, it wasn't across the street. It was in my room, perched on a tripod at the foot of my bed, the lens whirred softly, adjusting, drawing closer, until the entire world narrowed into a single black circle. From within that circle, a faint light flickered, and I swore I saw my own face staring back, expressionless, unmoving, recording me as I slept. I woke drenched in sweat, the hum still echoing in my ears. After that, I avoided the window altogether, but avoidance didn't help. I began to hear whispers in the night, faint and distant, as if carried through wires. My name, spoken slowly, syllables stretched and distorted. Sometimes it sounded like my own voice played back to me, warped and hollow. I unplugged every device, cut the power to my room, but the whispers persisted, growing clearer each night. The paranoia bled into daylight. At work, I felt eyes on me even in crowded rooms. Reflections in windows carried faint distortions, faces lingering longer than they should. Once, I swore I saw the tripod silhouette reflected in a coffee shop window, though the street behind me was empty. Sleep became impossible. The dreams returned, each one sharper. Always the lens, always the black circle expanding until it swallowed everything. And always, at the final moment, my own face staring back from inside it, frozen and pale. I began leaving the lights on at night, but that only made the shadows worse. They stretched across the room in strange angles, shapes that didn't belong to me. Sometimes I caught sight of movement just beyond the curtains, shifts too smooth to be branches or wind. The final straw came one evening when I returned home and found the curtains drawn back. I never left them open. Never. My chest tightened as I stepped inside, the air colder than it should have been. On my bed lay a single object, a tape cassette, unmarked, black, waiting. I didn't touch it that night. I couldn't. The idea of hearing what it contained felt unbearable. Instead, I sat in the corner of the room, eyes locked on the cassette, listening for the faint hum of recording, but all I heard was silence, heavy and suffocating.
Still, I knew the truth. Whether or not I played it, the tape already contained me. My movements, my breath, my restless nights, all captured, stored, waiting to be replayed. And once you exist on a tape, once your life has been captured frame by frame, you never fully belong to yourself again. The tape stayed on my bed for days. I couldn't bring myself to touch it, yet I couldn't throw it away either. Every time I tried to ignore it, my eyes drifted back. Its black shell absorbed light, edges sharp against the sheets. It wasn't just an object. It was a presence, patient and insistent, waiting for me to surrender. I moved it to a drawer once, thinking out of sight would bring peace. But that night, the drawer rattled softly, wood groaning as though something inside wanted out. In the silence, I swore I heard the faint click of reels turning. By morning, the tape was back on the bed, lying exactly where I had first found it. Sleep offered no escape. Dreams blurred with reality. I dreamed of pressing play, of static filling the screen, then clearing to reveal my room, my body pacing, lying down, rising again. Sometimes the figure on screen wasn't me at all, but something almost me. Features slightly wrong, movements too fluid, staring into the camera as though aware of being watched. I woke gasping, but the sensation of being observed clung to me long after. Finally, on the fourth night, I gave in. I borrowed an old cassette player from the basement, dust coating its buttons. My hands trembled as I slid the tape inside. The reels clicked, whirred, and static hissed through the speakers. At first, only silence, faint crackling. Then came the hum. Low, mechanical, like the vibration I had heard through the walls. My stomach turned as the hum grew louder, filling the room. Beneath it, faintly, a voice emerged. It was mine. I didn't recognize the words, but the cadence was unmistakable. My breath, my rhythm, my voice layered with static. It spoke in slow tones, syllables distorted, but the intent was clear. It was narrating me, describing what I was doing in that exact moment. Sitting on the floor, listening, breathing fast. I tore the tape from the player, chest heaving. The silence that followed was worse. My ears rang with absence, the hum still vibrating in memory. I stared at the tape in my hands, its black shell innocent and inert, but my fingerprints smeared across it like confession.
That night, the lens across the street glowed faintly. Not reflection, not trick of glass, a faint inner light, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. I shut the curtains tight, but the glow seeped through the fabric, a reminder that nothing I did mattered. I had already been recorded. The next morning, I found another tape, this one on my kitchen table, unmarked like the first. I hadn't heard anyone enter, hadn't unlocked the door. My body stiffened with dread. I didn't touch it. By evening, a third appeared on the couch, then a fourth on the desk. They multiplied, black shells piling slowly, silently, as though time itself delivered them. I stacked them in the closet, shut the door, shoved a chair against it, but at night, the faint whir of reels filled the air, dozens of voices overlapping, my own tones distorted, narrating in unison. When I pressed my hands against my ears, the sound only grew louder inside my skull. The apartment no longer felt mine. Shadows flickered across the walls, but when I turned, nothing moved. Reflections in the darkened window showed me sitting still, even when I paced, or lying down when I stood. Once I caught my reflection smiling as I cried. The tapes began to appear outside, too. On the bus seat beside me, on the counter at the grocery store, at my desk at work. No one else seemed to notice them. People walked past without pause, eyes sliding away, as if the objects existed only for me. I stopped leaving the apartment, but isolation only tightened the hold. At night, the whispering began, voices spilling from the walls, from the floor, from the vents. Not just mine now, but others, layered beneath, familiar, unfamiliar, countless, all narrating, lying awake, heart racing, afraid. The voices bled into waking life. Walking from one room to another, I heard descriptions of my movements seconds before I made them. Turning the handle, stepping through the door. Each time, my body obeyed, as though controlled by the narration itself. My will dissolved into inevitability, the line between choice and command blurring until I couldn't tell if I lived my actions or replayed them. The glow across the street intensified. Some nights, I swore I saw not just the lens, but the faint outline of faces behind it. Not my neighbor, not anyone I knew. Faces blurred by static, mouth moving silently, eyes locked on me, watching, recording, waiting. One evening, I woke on the floor with no memory of falling asleep. Around me lay dozens of tapes, stacked in neat towers, reels spinning though none were in a player. The air throbbed with the overlapping voices of my life, narrating everything I had ever done, every secret thought, every word I had never spoken aloud. It was all there, endless, archived, impossible to erase.
I smashed one against the floor, plastic cracking, reels unraveling. The voices cut out for a moment, silence rushing in like relief. But then, from the corner of the room, another tower of tapes appeared, reels spinning faster, louder, as though mocking my attempt. I realized then destruction was useless. The recordings weren't in the tapes were only vessels. The true archive was elsewhere, somewhere I couldn't reach, somewhere that had already swallowed me whole. That night, I dreamed of an endless room lined with shelves, stacked floor to ceiling with tapes. Each one bore my name. Each one spun in unison, whispering my life into the dark. In the center of the room stood the camera, its lens a void, its glow pulsing. I stepped closer, and for the first time, saw what stared through from the other side. It was me. Not the me I knew, but a hollow version. Eyes black, smile fixed, body rigid. The hollow me leaned toward the lens, and when it spoke, dozens of voices poured from its mouth. I woke screaming. But the scream was already on tape.
By the time the third week passed, I stopped pretending I had any control. The tapes multiplied too quickly to count. Every morning, new stacks appeared, arranged in careful patterns across the floor, spiraling outward like black petals. Each reel spun silently, though no power fed them, no machine touched them. They turned because I breathed. The voices had changed, too. No longer a detached narration, they carried tone, mockery, pity, even cruelty. My secrets became punchlines, moments of pain replayed with relish. The sound of my own shame filled every corner, amplified until the walls quivered. I no longer lived alone. I lived with an audience. The lens across the street glowed constantly now. No attempt to hide, no need for shadows. At night, it burned against the glass, casting a faint beam into my bedroom. When I tried to block it with curtains, the light seeped through the fabric, edges glowing red as though heated from within. I stopped sleeping in bed, retreating to the floor of the hallway where no windows reached, but even there, the glow found me. Then came the images. The first was on my television. Static filled the screen, buzzing softly, before clearing to show my bedroom from an impossible angle, high above, as if from the ceiling itself. I watched myself toss on the bed, pulling the covers tight, unaware I was being filmed. The image flickered, then jumped to the kitchen, showing me sipping water, shoulders hunched. It cut again, this time to the hallway, where I now sat watching the screen. And there I was, frozen, staring into the television, my eyes wide, mouth slightly open. The image looped, replaying endlessly.
I smashed the television, shards scattered across the floor, but the reflection in the dark screen lingered, still showing me watching myself, lips curled into a smile I hadn't made. After that, reflections became dangerous. Windows showed me in rooms I wasn't in. Shards of broken glass whispered with faint laughter. Even puddles on the street rippled into shapes that looked like me, watching, waiting. I tried to call for help once. I dialed the police, voice shaking, telling them about the camera, the tapes, the invasion. The operator listened quietly before answering. Her voice was calm, too calm. She recited my address, my date of birth, even the words I had just spoken, repeating them back to me in the same tone, syllable for syllable, like a recording. When I dropped the phone, her voice kept speaking, muffled through the receiver, narrating the sound of my breath.
The glow surged, filling the room with blinding light. The reels inside my chest spun faster, voices roaring in unison. My body froze, my vision narrowing into a black circle. The last thing I saw was my own face staring back from the lens, expressionless, captured forever. Now, I don't know if I'm writing this, or if it was written for me. The tapes still spin, the voices still hum, and the glow never fades. Perhaps I'm still in the apartment. Perhaps I'm already on the shelf, another reel in the endless archive. All I know is this. Once you are recorded, you never stop being watched. And somewhere, across the street, the lens is already searching for its next window.
I unplugged the line, smashed the handset, but the voice continued faintly through the static of the wires, echoing inside the walls. Days lost meaning. I ate without tasting, slept in fractured bursts, dreamed in endless corridors of shelves stacked with tapes. Each reel spun faster, voices overlapping until they roared like a storm. And always, at the end of the hall, the camera waited, its lens wide, its glow consuming. I stopped locking the door. It didn't matter anymore. They were already inside. One evening, I returned from the kitchen to find the camera in my bedroom. Not the neighbor's across the street. This one stood on a tripod at the foot of my bed, lens whirring softly, adjusting to follow me. Its glow pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. My chest tightened as I stepped closer, every nerve screaming to look away, but I couldn't. The lens shifted, and the screen in my mind lit up. I saw myself from above, from behind, from angles no human eye could reach. Each frame layered until I no longer recognized which body was mine. My arms lifted without command, my mouth stretched into a smile too wide. I laughed, a laugh sharp and mechanical, layered with static. That night, I dreamed again of the archive, the endless room of shelves, tapes spinning in perfect unison. But this time, the hollow version of me wasn't behind the lens. It was in front, seated among the rows, splicing reels together, weaving my life into new narratives. Every cut, every edit changed something inside me. By the time I woke, I couldn't remember which memories were real and which were rewritten. The final tape appeared on my pillow. Unlike the others, it bore a label, "Last Recording." My hands trembled as I lifted it, the reels already spinning, though untouched. I didn't own a player anymore. I had destroyed them all. But I heard the tape anyway, its sound spilling directly into my ears. It didn't narrate. It commanded. Stand, walk, sit, smile. My body obeyed without hesitation, as though the tape wasn't describing, but directing. I felt myself move to the window, draw the curtains back, stare directly into the glowing lens across the street. My reflection in the glass smiled, eyes wide, body perfectly still. And then the tape whispered the final word, "Record."